At least in this book, they call it quadratic form. In the pre-cal book, they call it quadratic type. And it comes up a lot, not just in polynomials. Okay. In terms of polynomials, I mean, this expression that we're about to factor is not a quadratic. If it was a quadratic, then we wouldn't need another rule, right? But it's what we call quadratic form because of the pattern of the exponents, right? This is the way you recognize it. It's the fourth power. The first term is to the fourth power. The middle term is squared. The last term is a constant, right? It's a trinomial, which kind of suggests the factoring we did with quadratics. Because it's the quadratic form, we're going to use the same kind of reasoning that we did with quadratics. We're going to say, what two numbers, the product is 6 and the sum is 7. I didn't ask that, did I? I said, what two numbers, their sum is, their product is 6 and their sum is 7. 6 and 1, right? So you would say plus 6 plus 1. Now, if it was a quadratic, it would be x plus 6 times x plus 1. But it's not a quadratic. It's to the fourth power. So the first term has to be x squared plus 6, x squared plus 1. If you're not sure about it, just FOIL it to see how that would work if I FOILed it. That would be x squared times x squared is x to the fourth. X squared times 1 is plus x squared. X squared times 6 is plus 6x squared. And 6 times 1 is 6. So there's our x to the fourth plus 7x squared plus 6. Right. Now, in fact, quadratic form is not just with polynomials. We're doing it in pre-cal now and in functions. This is considered to be a quadratic form also. And e to the 2x plus 7e to the x plus 6. So you don't recognize the e to the x yet. You will eventually, right? But we notice the pattern of the coefficients. This one is squared. This one is the first. There's a constant. Factors as e to the x plus 6, e to the x plus 1. It still factors just like a quadratic. Right? Here's another one that'll come up. You'll get this stuff soon enough. Sine squared x plus 7 sine x plus 6. And that's the way you write sine squared. Sine with a 2 and then the x. Right? How do we think that's going to factor? Sine x plus 6, sine x plus 1. It's still, every time you're just using the same kind of factoring you did with quadratics, even though it's not a quadratic, right? Right, that's what we mean by quadratic form. It has kind of the form so we can use the same factoring, even though it's not a quadratic.